Hello and welcome to this very short video about the room setup. So the room setup is up here, and it's quite important always to go through it at least once when you have a new model. So there's a lot of settings in the room setup. The two most important settings that you should always consider is the impulse response length and the number of late rays. The number of late rays is generally how many rays you would use in your calculations besides the early. These are normally, the early reflection is normally set to be automatically chosen, but the number of late rays you should manually choose. There's these three buttons where you can choose between survey, engineering and precision, where you can see that the number of late rays will change. It's not always enough. If you have coupled space or more special case or a very uneven absorption, please set it higher. Even though you just want engineering, I would double it if you have a special case like that. Actually, I often, because most computers are quite fast, I often go for precision and then say half of that. But if you have a really large room or you have not simplified very much, this is a nice simplified model as we like it, but sometimes you cannot simplify it, or you get the model from somebody else, so it is just super complex with a lot of detail, and then you would easily have a huge calculation time, and the late rays will definitely add to this calculation time. So let's set it to 8,000 for now. Then you have the impulse response length, and that is here you should try to guess. Sometimes you can do it from the quick estimate in the material list, but guess what is the reverberation time. What is RT? Let's say it's 4 seconds, then you would set this to 4,000 because you need to cover that. And all, so it's the length of the impulse response we calculate from. Let's just see if we make this too short. Let's say it's only 500. Then a way we can test to see if it's too short, the impulse response length, is just to go to the global estimate and then let it run for a little while. You can see here we don't get any values out to derive results. So you can see here if you go to estimated reverberation time, it's all blank because the reverberation time is longer than the impulse response length. And remember, if you have a really long room or really large room, it should be extra high because then the sound also needs to the incident sound, the first sound, also needs to get there at all. For very like specially long rooms or especially large rooms, then you should set it even a bit higher. But let's try to set it to 2,000 and see if we get anything. So let's see, we get something here at least. Yes, so because they're all below 2, actually you can set it a bit lower. It would be fine here to just set it to 1.5, but again, better be safe than sorry. Often it's good to set just, I would set it around the reverberation time, but actually it can be a bit lower. So the impulse response length is really important always to set. Often when people cannot get the results they want out, or they get blanks or stars, then it's because the impulse response length is simply too short. The problem with a way to see if you're using it's actually impossible to know if you have enough rays. You could make multiple calculation and see when it starts to give the same results, like where you increase the rays and then recalculate the same thing. But another way to see it, let's just make sure it's too low. We'll set it to 100. You can see here if it's if it's quite low, it will turn yellow, and if it's really low, it will turn red. To give you a little warning here, we'll set it to, let's just set it to 100 rays, very low. And then I've just set up a little test calculation here that we will just run But of course it will be quite fast when there's only 100 raised. Now it's already done. But the results will probably also... it's not all additions that have the single point response, but for the additions that have, a really good place to go is to the decay curve. Here you can see it has some dramatic drops here, and it's generally quite rough all the way through. It's a sign on too few rays. So let's just go back and set it to... yeah, let's set it to 2000. Just for this example. Again, I would probably go a bit higher if this was something I really wanted to use. But you can also change it during your process. So begin with just having it quite low for the first rough calculations, and then increase it when you really when you're at the end of your project and want to get the last. So now we can see the decay curves are much nicer. You can still see that some problems up here, but again, it is quite below what we need. But I would increase it, even though it's below the dBl that for like we easily have T30 here. Yeah. That's these two numbers. I will make another video where I will go more into details about the specialist settings and also the conditions you can set up. But for most users, the impulse response length and the number of late rays is where you really need to make a choice, an active choice. Where the specialist settings you can more or less, for most cases, let them stay as they are. Thank you very much.